Hello and welcome to the Metapod Podcast, the Pokemon podcast that revolves around the evolving meta. Whether we're here, there, everywhere, Sean and I are up and at 'em early Tuesday morning, like literally hours before this podcast goes out, because Sean was traveling. I just accepted a job and found a house, so I'm like scrambling to move in 4 days.
Yeah. This Saturday, right? Something like that.
Yeah, Saturday I'm moving. So it's coming. Thankfully, though, living in my parents' basement for a couple months. Thankful for that, first of all. But I haven't really unpacked anything.
No, you're kind of like, luckily, I don't have much to do.
Yeah, the most stuff that I have to pack is like my books, which I mean, okay. So funny story for anyone seeing on YouTube. This is actually the second iteration of the bookshelf. So like I bought books, and if you've been watching the YouTube channel, you know I do a monthly video on the books that I buy. So like taking apart the bookshelf for the first time and packing that up, this is actually like the stuff that I bought this month.
I know you've been buying a lot of manga.
It's been a lot because I've been working at a bookstore and I get an employee discount. So I've been like literally any money that I've made at that bookstore is immediately funded into this wall right here. It's insane. They got me good.
Yeah.
But also because I'm moving, I want to give away to a code of someone on YouTube. So if you're seeing this, oh my gosh, hopefully you're getting this code if you're on Spotify or, Apple. I'm sorry. I could read it.
You could read it out, but that would be silly, I think.
Yeah. So, you know what? Head over to the YouTube, Atrocious Gameplay. I'll leave that code there in case, I don't know. Anyway, Sean, we got a lot to talk about today. Not only has there been updates from things that we talked about in previous weeks, but Starburst is upon us. Brilliant Star is coming soon. Starburst, the subset, has come out and released in Japan, so we're going to take a look at a lot of the cards in there. There's a lot of good cards. It's looking to be like one of the better sets from the last 6 months to a year, in my personal opinion. But, Sean, we got to talk about the lovely listeners first.
Yeah, we got to do a 5-star review. I actually can read it out this week because it's not on Apple's wonky, you can't see the reviews on desktop problem. So
yes.
So yeah, this one is from the YouTubes. It is from Cool Hand Luke, which I believe is a movie I should watch. I can't remember if I watched it. Good movie though.
Wait,
good
that's
movie.
A movie?
Yeah, Cool Hand Luke.
Never heard of it.
Wow.
Sorry.
Well, look it up. Get your history. It's an older movie. I want to say it's like the 70s, 60s, or 50s, somewhere in that range. But yeah, supposedly very good. Anyways, 5-star review, 5 stars. I don't listen on Apple. I usually listen on Spotify at work, so I came here to give my review. I just started playing the game last year, just before rotation, and I didn't even know what that meant. I found you all, and I've learned everything I know from you all. You make it so easy to understand the game. P.S. I hope Jake doesn't find a home because I like the wall in the background.
I specifically told Sean that we were going to read this review this week because I did find a home within the last week. So enjoy the wall while you can. Hopefully my new place, I can put things on the wall. I can't repaint the wall, but I can put things on the wall to make it fun at least. But again, if you like the podcast, you want to show your support, but maybe you don't have money to give gyrosean your Twitch Prime or anything like that. All you got to do, it's very easy. If you're on YouTube, leave a like, subscribe to the channel, leave a comment. If you're on Apple, leave a review, tell us what you think about the podcast. And if you're on Spotify, leave a rating. Let us know what we are out of 5 stars. Very, very easy to do. But you know what is easy to do, Sean?
What is that?
The team challenge. We kind of talked about,
I was going to say, is it easy to do?
Actually, it's not super easy to do. There's actually been some complications with the team challenge in terms of it being qualified. But anyways, we'll get there eventually. I digress. The team challenge, I talked about this last week towards the very end of our podcast in a little spurt. The Team Challenge Season 3 is underway. So if you do not know what the Team Challenge is, it's an online tournament series that the Pokemon Company has held since the pandemic era has been so long. You know, they've started doing tournaments online, and this is a specific tournament structure where you compete for your local stores. So for instance, Comic Book University was the store that I was competing and playing at in Indianapolis, kind of like my home base. And I qualified for them. I won one of the qualifier tournaments, and then we played in a big giant bracket for the US Comic Book University versus Tier 1 games, you know, in round 1. And it's kind of like that type of structure. And eventually, you know, you compete with the other countries as well and things like that. But that started within the last couple days, January 15th, the first stages. So some people I know have already done qualifiers. They've already competed in their first qualifier. But this goes on until May 8th. So if you're looking around at stores and stuff and you're trying to find places where you can play, it's likely that the stores that you're looking at haven't actually competed yet. Sean, do you plan on doing the Team Challenge? I know you haven't been doing too much Pokemon lately, but I think what was the store that you played for?
Third Universe.
Yes, that's what it was.
Yeah, they did the first two. So my gut tells me they'll probably do the next ones. My hesitation to do it, to be honest with you, is the more and more time goes on, the less and less I want to spend any money on PTCGO or subsequently PTCG Live, to be frank.
Just play Malamar.
I mean, I could, but like, it's one of those things where it's like, if I qualify, I don't want to only play Malamar during the event, because like, who knows, maybe Malamar will be trash. And then like, I also don't want to commit to spending like, you know, $100 to $150 in code cards essentially to build whatever deck. I mean, that's assuming it's a Mew VMAX deck, less if other decks, but still, it's not.
Yes.
It's not cheap. I am not like somebody who's usually money. What's the phrase? I'm not. I am price elastic, as they would describe a consumer. My price elasticity is high, meaning I will spend money. I do that. I play multiple card games. But even for me, I'm just kind of like, I'm making choices, bad ones, but I'm making fewer bad choices. And I'm like, if I don't enjoy playing online, why would I spend all of this money to play online? And they did say that you can play in person for the qualifiers. If your store has them in person for stores that like are where it's like, okay, like regionally, then you can do that. You don't have to buy online cards but if you qualify, all of it, that is going to be on PTCGO. So it's like, that for me is the reason I may not do it. It's just because I'm like, I just don't want to invest money into a platform that I don't play normally. It's a tough one, but should be a lot of fun. I think you probably covered this last week, but like the benefit here is you can play for three different stores in your state. That was the weird thing that came out after I think we recorded the pod, which is you could play for 3 stores, but they all have to be within the same state, which is a little, and they say your state. I don't know how they're not going to check your personal location.
State of residence associated with your like Pokemon account.
I mean, I could tell you right now, there actually is no state of residence associated with an account, but whatever.
Well, then I have no idea.
Exactly. Whatever state you register for, like you do a qualifier in, you have to pick that state for the other 2.
Oh, okay.
Because let's just say I know of stores who've had players from other places play for their previous team challenges. And so like, it's not, they don't check, they don't care. The mats don't get sent to the players individually. The mats get sent to the store. The store then distributes the pricing. So they don't know your address. They don't care. But if you are in a region like let's say DC, where you're like, well, what am I going to do? Am I going to do Maryland because it's Baltimore? Am I going to do, I don't know Virginia, I guess, like Richmond and all. So just pick whatever places that there's going to be multiple stores if you want to play in the state closest to you. And, Yeah, that it's a little weird considering it's online to region lock it like that. But
I guess in my mind, they're leaving it open to the possibility of like stores being able to have these like IRL events, in real life events, but also when we talk about competing for multiple stores, so 3 different stores, that's just qualifiers.
yes.
So if you don't know, in the team challenge, you play in qualifier tournaments until you win one. Once you win one, boom, you've made it into the team challenge. Now you're just waiting for the actual like big tournament itself, the next phase, if you will. So that's what we mean by competing for different stores. You can jump around, but I'm glad that the state thing has been clarified and cleared up. Shout out to Will Post on Twitter for posting FAQs and updates to all that stuff, because he's an official Pokemon guy, big time professor. I'm moving here in a couple days, as we've mentioned, and I'm moving to a different state. So like I was a little worried. I was like, am I going to be able to play in the team challenge if I want? What state do I go in? Like I had all these questions in my head, and I looked in the FAQ, and specifically moving during the period didn't solve anything. But
No.
your answer of once you sign up with a store, you stick with that state, that's way, way easier.
Yeah, I mean, I think people, it's fair to be like, it's kind of a weird rule. I get it. Like, I wish they would just say, you can do it for 3 stores in your region. Like, obviously, the North American players can't play in the EU and all that. Fair. That's fair. But, like,
I think they're
whatever.
also trying to counter, like, super teams.
That's,
So,
that's a good point.
You hear in, like, the NBA, like, Kevin Durant joining the Warriors. I know that's like old news now. That's like what, 7-8 years ago or something like that happened. But anyways, like you get like that, and you get these super teams, Dwayne Wade, Chris Bosh, LeBron James. I don't know if in the team challenge there was really that issue, but I do know of like top players banding together across like states and things like that. And I guess technically they still can do that.
Yeah, like I mean, they still can. I mean, if you are a high profile player and people all know where you live and you're clearly joining a store, like Pokemon might take action against those players. Like,
I doubt it.
I doubt it too. But like, if Kevin Clemente, right? We know that he is in the Northwest area. I want to say Washington State.
Yeah.
But if he were to all of a sudden join forces with like, Andrew Mahone or Azul, right? And they are, I want to say, in Indiana and Ohio, like, or vice versa.
Azul just moved to California.
Oh, okay. Well,
but yes, Andrew is in Ohio.
Yeah, like, I think, but it would be a little bit weird for a Pokemon company, I agree, to single out any given player just because people happen to know that they don't live there. So I think broadly speaking, you're fine. But yeah, I don't think it was a problem last time. Like the super teams, if you were people who like, yeah, if you live in Ohio, there's like a couple of card game stores that like the players that know each other, they're all going to play at the same one then.
Yeah, there's like a lot of great players and now like you could actually, yeah, that's nice. So then I think maybe it persuades you more to make a super team because you can compete with multiple, or you can compete in multiple stores qualifiers. So like, it's low risk, if you have a full grip, hypothetically speaking, if full grip is doing team challenge qualifiers, I bet Andrew Mahone may be playing it. I bet Natalie may be playing in it. I bet JW probably playing it. That's 3 players right there that are very, very good players that I don't really know if I can beat consistently in a tournament, So, so then I would be worried about maybe qualifying for the team challenge. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to go to a different store then. That was before, but now, I can jump into there and be like, you know what? I might as well get some good practice, if I don't qualify, and boom, there you go. I mean, it's free entries, so like.
Yeah, I think the biggest bonus to this is when you were originally locked in the original ones to like one store, that made it so hard for some stores to have an event that fired, which means you needed at least 4 players for each event, and if you had won one of the previous qualifiers, you can't play again. So technically, you needed 7 players throughout the course, all playing the events in some combination or other. But now that, you can go to 3, it's much easier for a store to be like, hey, we need, a couple more players for this one. And, people aren't locked out of playing, basically.
Yeah, and hopefully, ideally, it makes the first tournament as well even bigger. Like, it just naturally makes all the tournaments bigger. And
yeah,
and I agree. I mean, I know some people that this was more in other countries, not in the U.S., but the first qualifier they attach with the store, it only has 5, and then they can't play any other team challenge qualifier because, well, it just doesn't have enough players. Because like, you can't pick a day that everybody's going to be available. Right.
Yeah.
So you have to bang. If you have 6 players, ideally, right, you have to assume that, 2 of the 6 probably. I think that's kind of a low number, but 2 of the 6 won't be able to make it just based on work, family, trips, school, all that stuff.
Yeah. It's a less punishing way to organize it. I think it makes sense.
I would recommend on competing for your one or somebody's team challenge store, whichever store you choose, because the pricing, at least for the second one, was awesome.
Yeah.
Like, I just won one of the qualifiers and I got half a booster box of the latest set.
Yeah.
And a playmat.
Yeah. The pricing. Now, we don't know what the playmats will be, but my gut says that I wouldn't be surprised if there was maybe it could be a Charizard playmat.
I think it's going to be the next set after Brilliant Star. Because,
think?
Yeah, because the qualifier period ends in
May.
Early May. So, I mean, they're not going to send these out until several months later, until, like, after the tournament's over, right?
Yeah, usually they wait.
Send the pricing out?
Yeah, you could be right. And we have no idea what those cards are going to look like. But,
yeah.
I don't know. There's just a part of me that thinks to myself, like, it would be a pretty baller team challenge to do, like, because you have Charizard V-Star. The other option is Arceus, right? You could have a cool Arceus playmat. So if you don't remember the last one,
Leafeon and Glaceon.
You could. Yeah, the evolutions are always a good choice as well. So, if you want more, motivation, just know that the playmats, like the one from the first team challenge, which I do have, there was a Pikachu, a big Chonkachu that I have playmat. And then the one after that, there was
the legendary bird trio, because I got one of those. I got the Articuno, thank God.
So it would not surprise me then if you see, like, some of the evolutions or something. So motivation.
Anyways, if you need more motivation, well, I don't even know how you would transfer this as motivation. But Sean, do you remember the other week? This was like 2 weeks ago. We talked about potentially the biggest scam in Pokemon history, $3.5 million being lost from Mr. Paul's pocket. So for anyone who does not know, Logan Paul, if you haven't heard that name already in some form or fashion, whether that's just from the general internet or this podcast, bought a case of base set booster boxes. In a case, I believe it was supposed to be 6 first edition booster boxes. It would have been the most expensive purchase ever at one time in the Pokemon trading card game. It would have been, I mean, it's insane. He paid $3.5 million, and if it was real, it would have been worth way, way more. And, we talked about how Rattle, the YouTuber Rattle, so shout out to this person for really kicking off all of this talk. He investigated and did a series of different videos that, this doesn't look right. Some things look off, and a lot of people were questioning the authenticity of this box. And, word got around so much. There were so many different news outlets posting about this information and, talking about how Logan Paul may have been scammed all of this money, and news got to him. He brought all the people together, the person that he bought it from, the freaking baseball company that authenticated this, but I've already talked about how I feel about them. Brought them in, brought the whole gang in to a hotel room, and they opened up the box. And wouldn't you know it, Sean, it was fake.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think it's not us, like Rattle. So we didn't mention this in the original time, but Rattle did a really good video, going over all the reasons that it was fake. And we, talked about that. And we basically came to the same conclusion he did with all the evidence. Like, yep, this seems pretty dang fake. And I think you and I both are like, yeah, this is a fake box. And we'll see if Jake ever opens it. And, lo and behold, he did. And I know that my opinion was that this is all, to be frank, probably a big... it's a scam on us, the viewers, more than anything. Because Jake and team, I think, knew that it would probably be fake. I think it's all for the views, right? I don't think that this was actually that much of a surprise to Logan Paul. I keep saying Jake, Logan Paul.
We did the week that we covered this, we did accidentally say Jake. It's hard when one of your podcast hosts has that name.
Also, yeah. But yeah, I think Logan Paul had some inclination, and after the Rattle video, I mean, look, so what's happening here, and this is what's interesting, like the development, apparently, the person that sold the boxes to not Logan, but to the person who sold the boxes to Logan. So two sales back. So Logan bought it from Shine. Shine bought it from Card Kahuna, I believe it was, right? And that Card Kahuna, Jacob in this instance, apparently was like kind of harassing Rattle, the YouTuber, about his, breakdown video that talked about how the box was probably fake. And then afterwards, a separate account messaged Rattle and basically was like, hey, I'll give you $500,000 to take the video down. No way to necessarily verify 100% that this is his real account, like his private account, but
you can make accounts in minutes,
right?
And then buy followers to get that account looking like it's relevant.
But all that said, I think, enough people have said, like, yeah, it might be his real account, which, if it is his real account, super shady thing to do, to be like, I'll give you $500,000 to take the video down, but I don't know. And so the one thing that I was actually curious about, but the idea that he said, I'll give you $500,000 to take the video down, implicates that he knew, he had some knowledge that this box was probably not legitimate, right?
I mean, if you're a big time, like Rattle literally showed off a whole slew of reasons. Now, Joe Schmo, like myself, wouldn't know that was fake without the help of someone like Rattle. But like, if your claim to fame is collecting, buying and selling Pokemon cards, like you probably looked at that and you probably came to that same conclusion.
Yeah, like it's just, so I talked to a friend of mine who is soon to be a lawyer, I should say, and I just chatted with her casually about, like, so what does this all mean? Like, if Logan was like doing this because he was like, okay, well, if it's fake, I'll get my money back and it gives me content. So like everybody who's like, oh, you lost 3.5 million, he's already been credited all the money back from Shine, which is the right thing to do, because from Logan Paul's perspective, the due diligence, if you will, on the authenticity of the box was done by Baseball Card Exchange, like a trusted seller. And you could make an argument one way or another, but like, he was going on good faith that this was correct. And so Logan Paul is not actually out any money on the purchase of the box. So all that needs to be done is a refund. That's all fair, right? Yeah. And he opened it in a very timely fashion from the sale, as far as we know.
And he made sure that the guy that sold it to him was in the room as well.
Right.
When they opened it. And the baseball people were in the room as well.
So now there is the question then of the person who sold it to Logan bought it for $2.7 million from the person, I believe it was Jacob. So the question then is, does the person that bought it from the person before Logan Paul, he has not received a refund yet. There is going to be a legal battle. And like, is there any justification to this? Because one could argue that, like, depending on exactly when Baseball Card Exchange did the authentication. I can't remember if that was before or after Shine, the person who sold it to Logan, got the box. But there is an element of like due diligence on the part of like, hey, there's a lot of inconsistencies. The entire Pokemon community had seen these things on eBay for a while now. Like, it's no surprise to anyone except the person who bought it, apparently. And like, while that person might be able to get some amount of their money back, like, I don't know, man. If I was a judge, I'd be like, yo, unless there was some like actual like fake information handed out, like you bought a thing, or unless the person that sold it to you knew that it was fake, like knew 100% that it was fake. So it'll be interesting to see how this plays out because there's a lot of money at stake. Now, it could just be people refunding people all the way down the chain. Nobody actually loses any money. Although there could be an argument that Shine lost out on profits from a future sale. You know what I mean? Like, what could you have done with that money otherwise? But I don't know. Anywho, it's all complicated.
I don't think Logan Paul orchestrated a fake box. I just think he happened to come across it and he was like, you know what? I don't really think I can lose here as being a content creator, can make videos.
Yeah. I mean, like,
also shout out to OK J-Love for making a parody video of Logan Paul's video. It was quite possibly the funniest thing I've ever seen that man make.
I will say the funniest part of the video, there's a clip of the baseball card exchange guy being like, we all got duped. And it's like, no, you got duped, good sir. You got duped because you don't know anything about Pokemon cards, and all you did was verify. And it's like, well, this tape, and they go over like, oh, it looks really weathered, and the tape, and it's just like, you know, people can make things look weathered. How do you think? I don't know, like all of these theme parks.
The tape was like, this is the real box because the tape is embedded in the box. You know, you can see the box lines in the tape. And it's like, and then they open it up and it's like, oh yeah, man, that tape was real on that box, you know, like, oh man. And he's like trying to pull the tape off and he can't because like the tape is fake.
Yeah.
Or something. Like you can see him messing with the flap of the box and like he's trying to pull off the tape, but he can't pull off the tape because it's like, it's not real tape. I'm like, oh yeah, buddy, real tape there you got.
The one thing I will say to anybody out there who has PSA graded packs, like base set packs and whatever, apparently PSA was outsourcing the authentication of those packs to Baseball Card Exchange for some amount of time, for some amount of packs. So now there is actually like a big question mark of whether Baseball Card Exchange packs are I'm trying to find where they talk about it, but yeah, whether or not a lot of the baseball card exchange packs, for their authentication process for Pokemon booster packs. So
yeah,
I think that is now a pretty toxic asset to have in your collection. If you're spending money, if you're planning on buying them, I would almost say don't buy any sealed like PSA graded packs from anymore, at least for a long time until they can sort out all of this stuff, which is that's a huge thing, right? I know people collect that, and it's really sad that it's come out that this company who is grading that clearly is not expert at some of this. Maybe they're fine with the packs, but it just doesn't look good.
Not saying that we're experts and not saying that we would do any better. We're just here to give you the information and all of that good stuff. But Sean, or everybody here, if you're curious, because I don't think we mentioned it yet, if you're curious what was actually in the box, you know, maybe you're not watching on YouTube or you haven't seen the video, it was G.I. Joe cards. So I did look after the video had surfaced for like 8 hours later. I did look on eBay at G.I. Joe cards, and I'll tell you, I wouldn't be surprised if those jumped up in price because they're actually, I mean, they're not expensive, but like I had in my mind a certain price, and then I went on eBay and I was like, whoa, that's actually a kind of a little bit higher than I was thinking. So G.I. Joe, you know, Logan Paul isn't only affecting Pokemon cards, affecting that G.I. Joe card sphere anyway. But did you ever own a G.I. Joe card, Sean?
No, I did not own any G.I. Joe cards.
Me either. I didn't even know they existed.
Yeah, no,
but
no,
you know
thank you.
It does exist.
Yes.
Starburst. Sean. So, for anyone who does not know, I think it was this last Friday that we just had, so the 14th, over in Japan, a new set released called Starburst. This is one of the final parts, I believe, to Brilliant Star, a set that we're getting out in the rest of the world in about a month. So Sean and I are going to talk about our favorite cards from Starburst. I mentioned in last week's pod that there were a ton of really, really cool cards. I do think that Brilliant Star is going to be one of the better competitive sets. I should say like healthy competitive sets, you know, because we've had some good competitive sets like Chilling Rain and Battle Styles, but I'm talking like overall healthy, you know, good, the healthy good. You know, you're not drinking a Diet Coke, you're drinking water.
Yeah, I mean, I think a return to the potential return to more viable cards that are two prizers, it just helps, right? And if the power level of these two prizers can slowly start to match the three prizers, I think that just is a good direction for the game to head. So it seems promising.
Fingers crossed. But Sean, as we're getting into Starburst, which card do you want to talk about first?
I think we could probably go over all the V stars just really quick. I know we've covered a number of them already as they were announced, but overall, I would say like the V stars we are getting, it seems like they're 4, right? There's Whimsicott, Shaman, Charizard, and Arceus. Of all of those cards, I would probably argue that the Arceus is going to be the most impactful. And that is largely because, its V-Star ability, its GX, if you will, is an ability and not an attack. Which means that you can activate this and still do things on your turn to close out a game, to whatever. Whereas, in my opinion, like, the V-Star attacks, like some of them are really cool, like 320. Don't get me wrong, that's crazy. We have other cards that exist now as well that can add more damage to that coming out. We're basically getting a choice band reprint, so we'll add 30 damage.
Talk about that later if you don't know what choice band is.
Yeah, so you'll be able to one-hit KO with this Charizard V-Star, but really the flexibility of the Arceus power, during your turn, search your deck for 2 cards and put them in your hand. It's not even like, it's not like a supporter. It's like, it's just such a crazy ability that if you can build the right sort of combo turns, it's kind of like, I think that is game warping because it's colorless. It can, I mean, you could put it in any deck if it wasn't colorless, but you know, it can go in so many different decks, because it's an ability based V-Star mechanic. Yeah, I think that one will be a really interesting card to see. Like, do you build the deck around it? Or is this going to be like ADP a little bit where, you know, you have to figure out what the right partners are for it, for the meta, for the gameplay, whatever. So that's my thought on all the V-Stars. What about you, Jake?
I think that that final thought that you had of the flexibility of Arceus V-Star, I think is very valid. I know Josh Hatter on Twitter has been making a ton of different like potential lists for Arceus V-Star. I know he's very excited for Arceus V-Star, and me too, but I do agree with you that even though this card can be placed in a variety of different decks, very flexible card, especially being colorless, only I do think there's going to be a point where, you know, there's only 1 or 2 really good options that are viable to win tournaments, things like that, do really well for the deck. I mean, ADP is a really good example. You know, when Zacian came out, Keldeo flew out the window. You know, just don't really even play Keldeo anymore because Zacian is so good. You know, we had ADP Spiritomb as well, and not saying that ADP Spiritomb was bad because who was his name? Kevin?
Yeah, Kevin. Yeah.
During like the first Limitless tournament during the
Kevin
Invitational
Kruger.
when the pandemic. Kevin Kruger, thank you. I couldn't remember the last name, but Kevin Kruger's ADP Spiritomb deck was good, but I mean, it was more like a meta call of it being good instead of like something like ADP Zacian, Arceus, Dialga, Palkia, GX, and Zacian V, where that was just extremely dominant. So, especially with Arceus V-Star's attack, Trinity Nova doing 200 damage, which is pretty good. And then on top of that, as an effect, search your deck for 3 basic energy cards, attach them to your Pokemon V in any way you'd like, then shuffle your deck. I mean, a lot of those, Vs that we have seen that need a lot of energies that maybe aren't that good. For instance, maybe Colossal. I don't know if Colossal is going to be viable in the next format, but definitely it's more viable, right? Because you have something that accelerates those energies to that Pokemon. Although Wailord has Frostmoth, and Sean, I know you love the Wailord V in those coin flips, that gives it another option to be viable. So I like Arceus V-Star the best out of all of these. But personally, I also want to talk about Whimsicott V-Star because, well, I love Whimsicott as a Pokemon. It is a Psychic V-Star, and it's got an attack, not necessarily an ability, as its V-Star power. Remember, if you aren't aware about V-Star power and you're hearing Sean and I talk about it, it's basically like a GX attack to where you can only use the V-Star power once per game. So you'll have like a little counter. What's the thing that
it's like a GX marker, a V-Star marker.
That's the word that I was looking for. So you have a V-Star marker, and then when you use your V-Star marker in the game, you flip it over, similar to how GX was. But Whimsicott's V-Star power is for 1 psychic energy. This attack does 60 damage to one of your opponent's Pokemon for each energy attached to this Pokemon. And then for Psychic Colorless, the regular attack Tricky Wind for 160 damage. Your opponent can't play Pokemon tools or special energy from their hand during their next turn. I think this is really, really cool in my opinion. This card is kind of it has a couple different options. I mean, we have Shadow Rider Calyrex that has the ability to accelerate energies onto Pokemon. So you can build up a bunch of Pokemon or you can build up a bunch of energies on this Whimsicott for the V-Star power, right? 60 damage for each energy. That's already pretty good, in terms of adding up damage, especially when we're getting in a format where, Whimsicott V-Star has 250 HP. Arceus
V-Star.
Arceus V-Star has 280. Charizard V-Star, 280. Shaman, 250. So we're getting into that like 240, 290 range, I would say. And so 60 times is pretty good. And it says one of your opponent's Pokemon. So it's anything on the board. It's not just the active. It can be something on the bench that maybe ran away so you can finish it off for some quick prizes before they Cheryl, heal, whatever. And then just with special energies being such a big factor in the Pokemon card game right now, Tricky Wind could be a viable option of disruption.
No, I mean it's a nice card. I mean, does this partner with maybe Shadow Rider Calyrex because you can attach all these energy to it? I'm assuming.
I think so. And being weak to metal, right? One of the downfalls of Shadow Rider Calyrex Vmax is being weak to dark Pokemon. So you talk about Umbreon, Umbreon Vmax in the single strike decks. You talk about Gengar Vmax. That spiked up in popularity. We've talked about here on this podcast before. So just having a different option with Whimsicott V-Star the Alcremie was weak to metal types as well, but now this being a 2-prizer weak to metal instead of a 3-prizer, right? Now you can basically guarantee that, okay, they can hit through one of your Shadow Rider Calyrex VMAXs for 3 prizes, but they got to get through they got to get through 2 more Pokemon if you throw a Whimsicott, because that's only 5.
Yeah. I mean, this will be interesting to see, where all these V-Stars land. I also do like, like in terms of other abilities, Shaman V-Star has the ability versus an attack, healing 120 from each of your grass. Maybe I think it's good for, you know, the fact that Inteleon is like a thing right now, like the Inteleon meta for a long time. Like, yeah, this is like a fun once in a game negate to be like, I'm going to reset all the work that you just put in and we're going to start like it's turn 1 again. But, I mean, you know, I don't think you build around this. Charizard is interesting, though, because we haven't had a viable Charizard, I would say, since a really, like, I mean, really viable. Like, Leon Charizard.
Reshiram and Charizard.
Really, yeah. That's really the last one.
Yeah.
So this one, I think, might have some viability if you can find the right partners. Charizard Vmax is...
There are a couple different options. There's that new stadium that's coming out, which we'll talk about later, that will help accelerate energies. I mean, it's not out of the realm of possibilities that I think Charizard V-Star will be good, but it's not going to reach the level of like Reshiram and Charizard GX tag team, like in popularity or potential, but it'll be a deck that people can build, people can have fun with, and people can do well, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, it'll be fun. I mean, its first attack on the V-Star is not terrible. 130 plus 100 if it has any damage counters, which the stadium, which we'll cover later, does that. So 230, you know, you're sitting in Zacian territory. The problem is it's an evolution that is sitting in Zacian territory, which is like inherently problematic. But, you know, 280 HP is not nothing. So if you can, if the meta allows the V-Star Charizard to survive, and you can knock out a couple of things with these attacks and set up, you know, you set up something with 230, you knock something out with 320, and then all you have to do is like one little cleanup turn, and that's all you need to win the game. Like, hey, that's not terrible. So, but Jake, do we want to move on to the non-V-Stars?
I think we should. So, Sean, take away with Luminion, because the next one is the one that's like my most excited about card.
Yeah, I think we also talked about this a little earlier, but Luminion coming back into the format, the return of Tapu Lele, if you will, a lesser version of the Tapu Lele, probably. I think everyone would agree with that, but still, getting a supporter out of your deck when you throw this onto the bench. Yeah, I think this will definitely see a lot more play than what's the Eldegoss, right? This will see a lot more play than Eldegoss because you can do this early game. We all know that the game right now is it's such a fast-paced format that waiting for something to get into the trash that's not searchable, it's like that's not great. So I'll be interested to see like what this really combos well with. My guess is probably, does this go in Mew Vmax, I'm guessing, just to find your Eloise Sparkle on turn 2 or turn 1?
I actually don't know how much this goes into Mew, because I think a lot of your depth when it comes to Mew and a lot of your explosive power comes with having only Fusion Strike Pokemon to run with Genesec's ability, because Genesec's ability, if you don't know, is to draw more cards based on how many Fusion Strike Pokemon you have. So this kind of throws it off, and there's no like good way to pick up Lumineon, right? We don't have Acerola, we don't have AZ, we don't have what's Super Scoop Up, we don't have that card either. So I mean, you may see it, but I think that Mew is in such a good position that it doesn't need it.
Yeah. Do you have anything in your mind that you're like, you know what, I think this would work real well in that deck?
I think this really works well with pretty much anything other than Mew deck.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah.
I said the one deck.
I'm gonna be honest, like if you're not like a pure single prize deck like Malamar, I'll say Rapid Strike Malamar, or you're not Mew VMAX, I mean, I think this could work in any decks. I mean, in terms of like Urshifu, for example, Rapid Strike Urshifu, you know, you need to find Melanies or things like that. And I mean, you've got the Drizzile and Teleon line, which honestly, like that kind of hinders this as well. We talk about how this isn't as good as Tapu Lele GX. I mean, the Inteleon line is so influential in a lot of decks right now, and they can grab trainers. They can grab, you know, your supporter for the turn, and they only cost 1 prize, and eventually you can evolve the Drizzile into an Inteleon, which can do quick shooting or, you know, shady dealings too, depending on which Inteleon that you play. So I think that Luminion can be viable in a bunch of different decks, but I don't think we see it really until rotation happens, when the Drizzile when the shady dealings era has moved away. I think we see Luminion a lot more, but I don't think it's like every single deck plays it.
All right. So what you're telling people, Jake, is, hey, pick up your copies now, even if you're not going to use them, because if anyone remembers Eldegoss, not Eldegoss, I'm going crazy. What was Tapu Lele? Tapu Lele got to be like $20 a card. It probably still is, honestly, if you play Expanded. So pick these up now, even if it's not really perfect for the meta, because, to Jake's point of Inteleon, because when Inteleon rotates, when that Drizzile rotates, this will be the best option you have for finding certain cards.
And I mean, we look at this card, it's going to be dirt cheap, I feel like. You know, they're printing out these sets lately that are just wild printing. Luminion is not a popular Pokemon by any means. I would venture to say a lot of people didn't even know this was a Pokemon until we started talking about this card. So I agree. Go pick those up. And a deck that I am going to build and pick up is Raichu V. So Sean, I'm actually really excited for this card, not specifically because Raichu's on it. I mean, it's not Pikachu, thank goodness, because we already have enough Pikachu cards. Raichu getting some shine, but it's got 2 attacks on it. The first attack for 1 lightning energy is called Fast Charge. If you go first, you can use this attack during your first turn. Search your deck for a lightning energy and attach it to this Pokemon. I think that's a really cool move. We've seen iterations of that attack, but in attacking forms, not necessarily I don't want to say defensive, build-up forms. So like Fast Charge Latios or Fast Raid, whatever it's called, in Expanded, where you donk your opponent before they even play a single card. Anyways, this accelerating in energy is really nice. There's a couple different ways with lightning Pokemon to accelerate energies. Flaffy, insert Flaffy with all the Rayquaza Vmax piles that people built and sadly never really got any use of. But the second attack for lightning dynamic spark 60 times in damage. Discard any amount of lightning energy from your Pokemon. 60 damage for each lightning energy discarded in this way. I really like this, Sean, because this reminds me of one of my favorite decks that I have ever played in the Pokemon trading card game, and that is Blacephalon GX.
Ooh, I like this. Now, so that's interesting. My brain didn't immediately go to like, oh, this is a Blacephalon reprint, but that's kind of what it is. It's a lightning version of Blacephalon, with the only difference being it doesn't go to the Lost Zone. I think that's where the energy went with Blacephalon. Yes,
but that's okay, because I mentioned Flaffy earlier. Right? Flaffy continuously gets those energies from the discard pile. So if Raichu's attack puts them in the discard pile, Flaffy is going to get them back. And I mean, really the biggest differences when we talk about Blacephalon GX and Raichu is, again, that Lost Zone that Sean mentioned. Blacephalon's attack put those energies in the Lost Zone where you could never get them again. So you're very limited on energies. But the other one is 60 damage now. So Blacephalon being 50 prior, now we are at 60, which kind of works a lot better, I would say, in this format that we're in compared to Blacephalon, because when we were with Blacephalon, we were with GX tag teams, which were like 260 to 290 HP, unless you were a Wailord and you had 300. But now we're into the 300 plus territory. You know, Mew VMAX 310, Urshifu 330. So the Raichu is a little bit better in trying to build that up, I will say. And it's not going to be as good, I think, personally, because one, Urshifu is just too good of a deck. right? Urshifu will just Gale Thrust you, knock you out. Urshifu will snipe your Flaffies, knock them out.
There's more cards we're going to talk about.
We'll get to that. We'll get to that. But anyways, for the time being, as of right now, they're sniping your Flaffies. They're taking them all away. And plus, we don't have a Welder type card in this format.
That's true.
Welder accelerating 2 energies at one time, letting you do 3 energy attachments per turn with your 1 attachment from hand.
Yeah.
Whereas, you don't have anything like that from Raichu. You're just really basing on that fast charge turn 1 start, right? That's like your energy accelerant. That's not named Flaffy, of getting it in the discard. And so I don't think the deck is going to be as good, but I think it's going to be like a cheap deck to build. I think it's going to be a fun deck. I like getting a lot of energies in play, and I like discarding them and putting out a whole bunch of it's a very fun. Blacephalon was a very fun deck to play, and I'm really excited about that card.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I think this will be a lot of fun. I think another huge aspect that makes this one just a little less powerful than Blacephalon, it doesn't have the GX attack. For those of you who don't remember, the GX attack of Blacephalon was basically take a prize card for 1 energy, that was what made that deck such a scary closer, is because you're a 2 prize deck, which means it will take your opponent, for the vast majority of the time that deck existed, 3 attacks to win, right? So if you can get the race started first, like, I'm going to take 2 prizes and then I'm going to take 3 prizes. And it's like, well, okay, then you knock me out for the first 2. Cool. I've taken 3. I'm at 5. You knock me out for the second 2. I just need to find a Blacephalon and 1 energy and get it into the active, and I just win. And
it's
that
also fun fact, it's also pretty much an auto win in sudden death.
Yes.
Because there was a league challenge that I played in where I had a round where I went to sudden death because of I can't remember why I got damage counters put on me after attacking. Oh, spell tag. Spell tag knocked me out, and we went to sudden death, and I went second. Found an energy turn 1 from Giant Hearth, and I attached it to my Blacephalon. I said, "Good game, sir."
GG's. I will.
GG's. I will take my prize card, because in sudden death, if you do not know, you just have to take 1 prize card. So it was perfect for a deck like Blacephalon.
But I love this. I think it's great. I think the only thing that maybe is an interesting counter response to this deck is that, like, if you want that fast charge, which you probably do, you need to have a 2 prizer in the active spot and giving your opponent the ability, the chance to knock it out. To your point, like, whether it's Gale Thrust, whether it's just Mew Vmax, being able to hit 200, not that hard. So there is that awkward, like, in terms of the prize trade race, the game is kind of fast enough now where it's like, if I give you 2 prizes turn 1, I just might not win. It doesn't matter. I just might not win. So
it's not going to be great. It's not going to win, Players Cup or, a team challenge event, but it's going to be fun.
Yeah.
And I want to have fun. But Sean, what other cards look fun?
I mean, the last couple of Vs we'll talk about, like Honchkrow V, you can attach 4 Pokemon tools to it. You could get Wild. You could get 4 Cape of Toughness. You could get 4 Choice Bands. You could mix and match whatever you want. I think it's an interesting ability. I think my gut says that, like, it'll be interesting to see if they print Pokemon tool cards in the future that give Honchkrow the ability to wall the same way that Sylveon, the Sylveon tag team card could wall things with the different fairy tools. But, and 130 is bad, right? I said this on Twitter. 130, your opponent reveals their hand. Why? Unless you can interact with their hand, this is kind of like, cool, I get to see whether or not I lose. I don't want to, don't tell me. But the fact that there's Choice Band got printed in the same set makes it 160 at least, which means you're 2-shotting most things, which is like, some people are like, oh, you 3-shot things. And I'm like, well, no, not really. I think it's cool.
I think that this Pokemon is not meant for attacking. This is actually, Honchkrow is a support Pokemon. If you could scroll down, we're gonna jump ahead.
Oh yeah, let's do that.
If you could scroll down to the little Pachirisu. This little guy right here is what's going to be doing the attacking. This has been making some noise on Japanese YouTube Pokemon deck profile channels. Pachirisu, a 70 HP Pokemon, searchable by level ball. Sean, very, very nice. You know I love my level ball. Lightning colorless is its attack, does 30 times damage. This attack does 30 damage for each Pokemon tool card attached to your Pokemon. So you get Honchkrow in there. You put 4 tool cards on top of that. You don't have to discard it like Whimsicott. It's just cards that are attached. So you can keep those attachments there the entire game. And you could do a decent amount of damage. I mean, you're a 1 prize attacking deck, so you don't mind if you have to 2-shot, you know, like Vmax or V-Star Pokemon. You don't have to 1-shot things. And I mean, I don't think this deck will be BDIF, but I think that this is like Pachirisu, Honchkrow V is a deck that you take to your locals and you just have a blast.
Yeah.
You know, you might do well at your locals because local meta is a lot different than like a regional and whatnot. There's a lot more fun at a local meta, but like I can't wait to play this deck.
I think
my buddy Kyle showed me a video that someone had made about this deck, and it just looks so fun.
What's the there's a card that would be an expanded now that lets you search out 2 Pokemon tool cards?
Adventure Bag.
Yes. We don't have anything like that in standard right now, right? No.
No, I wish we did because that would be so nice if Adventure Bag was around. But yeah, that card from Lost Thunder, I believe it was, is not in any form or fashion. You have to Drizzile it.
Yeah. I'm just trying to think of like, you know, how do you, because you could, if you have 4 Honchkrows and they're all loaded up with 4 tool cards, this Pachirisu is doing 400. What is that? What would that be? Like 30 times 12? No, 30 times 16.
Yes.
So that would be 480 damage on a 1 prizer.
Way more damage than you ever need.
Oh yeah. But I mean, like, if you have a deck that can draw cards, because that ultimately, between drawing cards and maybe some amount of search, but if you have a deck that wants to draw a lot of cards, like you load up on Professor's Research, maybe the new like Cynthia or whatever, just to like cycle and see, because if you get these Honchkrows down, it's not like you'll need to discard a bunch of your tools. Just attach them and keep going, right? Yeah, I think I did not know that this Pachirisu existed, Jake. I'm not gonna lie. So I really like that combo.
Yeah, it's very, very cool. I think it's also going to be a cheap option to build. But Sean, if we could go back to Sharon's care real quick, we're going to start talking about these supporters that are in this set. This one is going to be comboed, I think, a lot with Arceus V-Star and potentially Luminion V. So Luminion V, if you do not remember, we talked about it earlier. When you put it down on your bench, it has the ability to grab a supporter from your deck. Arceus being a colorless Pokemon as well. Arceus V-Star being colorless. We look at Sharon's Care, the supporter. Put one of your colorless Pokemon that has any damage counters on it and all cards attached to it into your hand. So, Sean, Arceus V-Star, you know, we talked about the attack Trinity Nova accelerating 3 energy cards and attaching it to your Pokemon. It would be really, really cool, you know, since we're in kind of a 2-shotting format a lot of times, your Arceus V-Star uses Trinity Nova, accelerates the energies. It gets hit for some damage, right? Doesn't KO, maybe even gets close for like a setup, quick shooting, you know, knockout later. It would be really cool to put a Luminion down, go find your Sharon's Care and pick up that Arceus V-Star so you don't give up any prizes. And then because you accelerated energy on your previous turn, you just go into the next attack. And so I mean, you don't play this if you you only play this if you have Arceus V-Star, right?
I think there are other cards you could combo this with. What is, like, I'm trying to think, like, you know, Togekiss, I think it is, or Toga.
Oh, yeah. Togekiss
Yeah,
Vmax.
Togekiss Vmax is interesting. You can go get cards out, and you could play that as like a Togekiss control deck a little bit, where, like, as long as they're not one-hit KOing you, you just are playing and you can just loop some Sharon's Care with Palpad over and over again. Like, that's a really interesting little combo there. You obviously have to have something to go into. That is, I think, one of the challenges. But if you have 2 Vmaxes and they can't one-shot you every turn, then you just keep doing this and you're rolling. Another card, what is Ditto Vmax's attack?
It's like 3 colorless energies, I believe, for Ditto VMAX, but max transform. Choose one of your opponent active Pokemon attacks and use it as this attack.
No. What about I'm just trying to think about like Cramorant. Cramorant VMAX is also a colorless, right?
Yeah, Cramorant VMAX is the coin flips, which is actually the ladder reward right now.
Yes.
Cramorant VMAX. 80 damage for 3 colorless, or 80 times, I should say, for 3 colorless energies. Flip a coin for each energy attached to this Pokemon. The stack does 80 damage for each heads. Now, unfortunately, we don't have the Porygon Z anymore that accelerates energies, but we can also, Sean, look at another colorless Pokemon that has made some noise. Greedent.
Yeah.
VMAX, Greedent. I want to make sure that I get all of the words right, and I forgot how to spell Greedent. You remember Turn a Profit, Sean, for 2 colorless energies, 30 damage. If your opponent's basic Pokemon is knocked out by damage from this attack, take 2 more prizes. Poor little Sobbles.
Yeah, and then you have that new energy that we will talk about coming out. That is, you can attach it and just go right off the bat. Yeah, I think this could be a really interesting little like combo piece that makes, because I don't think that colorless Pokemon have really had a home for a long time. And that's largely because their attacks, because they're colorless, I think the Pokemon Company tries to make sure that they're not too broken, because like if you have a really good colorless Pokemon that you can use any energy on, like I can't remember the last time that we had one that was just like, it felt broken, but it's definitely something they're concerned about. But, this maybe gives it like a special little something to be like, hey, play colorless a little bit. It's not the most powerful type, but like now if they can't knock you out, they can't win the game. So that's just it.
A lot of times with colorless Pokemon lately, we've seen it as kind of a one of in different decks to like maybe counter, if, let's say, for example, we're back in the Sun and Moon era, or last rotation, I should say, where we had Welder in the format. You could put Double V in your Welder box deck, and if you hit a water type Pokemon, Double V is a good substitute. It's probably not going to get one shot right because it's not weak to the water Pokemon like all of your fire Pokemon would be. So that's kind of how we've seen colorless Pokemon, I will say, within the last 2 years are just like one of options, to avoid weakness, I will say.
Yeah.
One of the fire accelerants that we're getting, or I shouldn't say it's an accelerant, it's actually a decelerant. Kindler, the supporter. Discard a fire energy from your hand in order to use this card. Look at the top 7 cards of your deck. Choose any 2 you find there and put them in your hand. Shuffle the other cards back into your deck. It's like Rotom Phone, but you get to get them right away, almost.
It's interesting. If you need a discard outlet for fire energy, fine. Personally, I'm just like, I don't know if there are that many decks that are so precious about the cards that they don't want to like, because this is your supporter for the turn. That's just my opinion. I'm like, I would rather just see all 7 and have access to all 7, thin my deck out, all that good stuff, So I don't know, situationally maybe, but
But Sean, I think the next card is even better. Let's talk about Cynthia's Aspiration.
Yes.
So Cynthia's Aspiration, a supporter. Draw until you have 5 cards in your hand. If any Pokemon were knocked out during your opponent's last turn, draw until you have 8 cards instead. Sean, I'm a fan of Rapid Strike Malamar. Pure single prize deck. Doesn't have any Vs, doesn't have any Vmaxes. It's all little baby Pokemon. In that deck and a lot of other single prize decks, you play a Bruno. in those right now, where you shuffle your hand, and if your Pokemon was knocked out last turn, you draw 7 cards. This card, Cynthia's Aspiration, I think is just better.
Yeah.
Honestly, it's a better Bruno. I mean, not only do you get one more card if your Pokemon wasn't knocked out last turn, Bruno being draw 4 cards, Cynthia draw until you have 5 cards in your hand. But with the knockout as well, it's also 1 extra card. Bruno being draw 7, Cynthia's Aspiration being draw 8. I've made a perspective Malamar list because, you know, that's like the only thing that I can build, and I've made a perspective list, and I have taken out my Brunos and I have put in my Cynthia's Aspirations in replace. I think this is a cool card. I think that most all single prize decks should play this. I don't know about 2 prizers per se, but
I mean, the whole draw until you have 8, it's great if you're a single prize deck. It just depends on if you're a single prize deck that generally empties your hand every turn, because it's not draw 8. I think that's the key. It's not like the old Cynthia where you shuffle draw. You draw until you have that X number. So if you're just sitting on like a handful of stuff that you can't play, whether it's Pokemon or whatever, it's actually a pretty dead card. So
I think also that, I mean, we talk about what's in the format right now. So like Marnie is a huge card in the format still. I mean, people still play it, people still use it, all that jazz. And so, you know, a lot of people will talk about how they got Marnied for game. You know, they got Marnied into a completely dead hand, couldn't do anything, and that's how they lost the game. Well, look at that. You get Marnied into a dead hand, you can at least draw some cards.
I suppose, yeah. You can draw 3 cards.
I mean, 3 is better than just once per turn, Sean.
That's true.
At the beginning of your turn.
That's true.
Sean, what card do you want to talk about next?
I mean, Roseanne's backup is good for control decks. I think we talked about that before. I'm also conscious of time. So I'll skip ahead to... I mean, the meme, Pot Helmet is a bit of a meme. Let's be frank. It's only works on single prizers, and they take 30 less damage, which, like...
Doesn't feel like enough.
That's like, okay. Unless you're playing, like, a single prize, like, Wailord or something that is, like... Or Aggron or something that's, like, 200 plus HP. I'm kind of like, okay. But really, Choice Belt. Choice Belt is huge. Doing 30 more damage to your opponent's active Pokemon Vs or Vmaxes. I think that's absolutely fantastic. I think it's definitely a little scary because Mew Vmax can play this too, which is like, we complain about how powerful Mew Vmax is, and it's like, aha, this is, I think, the first set that's come out where there's not an obvious counter to the last set's best deck, and this actually makes the last set's best deck even better. So yeah, I think that for me is the next main card. But Jake, just looking at a couple of the other trainers left here, what are your thoughts?
We've got Collapse Stadium. I don't know if we've talked about this card at all, but Collapse Stadium is a stadium card. Each player can have more than 4 benched Pokemon. If more than one effect changes the number of benched Pokemon, use the smaller number. So maybe that indicates that later in the format, we may get something that makes it even smaller than that. I know Avery says 3 bench Pokemon, so that you would go to 3 in terms of that. And then if a player has 5 or more bench Pokemon when this card is played, they discard Pokemon until they have 4. We've seen this. I believe it was Parallel Stadium.
Yes.
Back in X and Y era. Somewhere around there is a card that has been out of the standard format for a long time, but I know a lot of people were excited about this stadium coming back, kind of like that counter to Mew VMAX, you know. All right, take away Pokemon, because Avery, you know, Avery's real cool, but do you really want to play draw 3? Like,
yeah, it's this that other one hurts you probably as much as it hurts your opponent. And you're like, oh no, thank you. So
yeah, but I mean, if you're a deck that doesn't want to spam fill your bench like Mew or Rapid Strike Malamar, then I mean you may be okay with it. But Sean, there's a couple more cards that we should talk about. So which one do you want to do?
I mean, Magma Basin. Anybody who was excited about, who loved Welder and is sad that Fire has not really been very good, you rejoice for Magma Basin. Get your gold copies if and when they come out. But yeah, once during each player's turn, important to note, that player may attach a fire energy from their discard pile to one of their bench fire Pokemon, benched as well, also important to note. And if you do, you put 2 damage counters on it, which might be impactful, may not. But
you do know that Charizard that we mentioned earlier does more damage with more, or does more damage if it has damage counters.
That's right. That's right. So, but it's a nice fire acceleration because you have your attached for turn, you can Magma Basin, and you can Raihan, if you will. And that's 3 energy, 1 turn, boom, you're ready to rock and roll, which, that's kind of, for the most part in the history of Pokemon, 3 fire energy or 3 energy on a fire type was kind of that's how fire operated. And then without Welder, they've had to go back down to 2, like with Victinis, but they're just not powerful enough in a lot of metas. So I'm really excited about that. So,
but Sean, an energy that is maybe not so powerful in the sense of packing a punch, it is going to be powerful in the sense of being used. Double turbo energy. So this is a special energy that is coming out while attached to a Pokemon. This card provides 2 colorless energy. This is any Pokemon. This isn't like twin energy where it's restricted to only non-rule box Pokemon, etc., etc. Attacks from the Pokemon this card is attached to deal 20 less damage to your opponent's Pokemon. So we talked about Togekiss earlier, Sean. Togekiss has 2 colorless energies that it needs in order to attack. Max Profit from Green and Vmax, 2 colorless energies. And so with different modifiers like the choice belt going on, also they have the powerful energy colorless Pokemon do. You could do still some substantial damage with this card attached to your Pokemon, even though you're dealing a little bit less damage, but also it helps those colorless Pokemon, get up a little bit faster and get going a little bit faster than usual.
Yeah. I mean, I think double colorless as a card that could be used on the main attacking Pokemon in the game is something we've been missing since it rotated, and you haven't really seen played on anything meaningful since Zoroark, right? And so they obviously wanted to rebalance the double colorless mechanic. And I think this is a great solution, right? Which is you're going to do 20 less damage, but 1 attachment for 2 energy. I'll be really interested to see if they eventually make a double dragon energy return as well. Just because I think dragon Pokemon are kind of in a weird spot, and this doesn't really help dragon Pokemon. This really helps primarily colorless, I would say, but some others as well. But I like this.
You know what else I like, Sean?
Yes.
I love my little Manaphy down here. So Manaphy, 70 HP Pokemon, very good for level ball decks. Ability Wave Veil, Sean. This is the highly regarded ability of prevent all damage done to your bench Pokemon by your Pokemon's attacks. So the wall protecting your bench is back. Bench barrier is back now in terms of Wave Veil. Wave Veil. Say that 5 times fast, Sean. But I just want to clarify that just because we're getting Manaphy back, that does not mean your Urshifus are toast. That doesn't mean your Jolteons are toast. If you remember when Mew was in the format, it wasn't an auto win against those decks, especially when we have quick shooting in the format, Sean, and being able to place pings everywhere on the field, because Manaphy doesn't affect damage counters, it just affects damage from attacks. So abilities like Zigzagoon and quick shooting Inteleon do not get blocked by this. Manaphy can still get taken down. It may stall out your opponent, and especially for a single prize deck, it may mean that your bench doesn't get absolutely annihilated by Jolteon or Urshifu, but they can still knock out that Manaphy. They can still get around, the ability that you have with Manaphy. But it's definitely going to help out a lot of decks, especially when you talk about ones that have those bench sitters. So Rayquaza Vmax is a really good example. I think Rayquaza is going to get a boost. I don't think it's going to be BDIF, but it's definitely going to be better now that your Flaffies don't die immediately.
I mean, like you were saying earlier, Raichu V. You need the Flaffies to stay on the bench to re-accelerate energy, all that good stuff. And yeah, now there's an actual, I think you're right. It's not an auto loss for the Urshifus, if you see this. But what it does say is it's not an auto loss for the decks that require setup. Because I think that was the problem, is without Mew, like bench setup decks do auto lose essentially to the spread decks.
Like, here's a good example of what you have to do right now as a single prize deck against something like Urshifu or even Jolteon. So in Rapid Strike Malamar, when I go up against a Jolteon or a Rapid Strike Urshifu, I have to get like 3 Inkays on the board at one time to guarantee that I'll be able to attack next turn. That sucks. That's so hard to do. And so now with the Manaphy, they have to go through my Manaphy in order to start taking more multi-prize turns. And so that's going to be a huge, huge help. And I know a lot of setup decks are really going to love that, Sean.
Yeah. So pick yours up now. It looks like, I want to say, if I'm on this, it looks like it's an uncommon, if that's correct. So it shouldn't be as expensive as Mew Bench Barrier if it prints in English as an uncommon.
I bet it's also going to be a pre-release promo.
That would be, maybe.
Mew from Broken Bots, I don't think it was a pre-release promo, but it was a Hidden Fates promo.
It was a pin. It was a pin collection promo. I don't know if this will be a pre-release, only because I don't know, because usually pre-release promos have some playability in the actual pre-release format, but like I'm not really sure what is being printed in the set that would do bench damage. That would be a problem. But
I just want a really pretty art and a really pretty stamp with my Manaphy, Sean.
That's
Get
fair.
Off my back.
That's fair. I would like it to be a pre-release promo. I'm not sure if it will be, but fingers crossed.
Let's talk about one more card.
One more.
There's one more card I want to mention, not necessarily
it's not on the list. Oh, okay.
Bibarel. So it's like 3 cards under the Manaphy if you want to go back up.
Okay, I'm going back up. Let's see. This one.
Bibarel, a stage 1 colorless 120 HP Pokemon with the ability Hardworking Fangs. Once during your turn, you may draw cards until you have 5 in your hand. It's got attack for 3 colorless, 100 damage, flip a coin if tails, its attack does nothing. Forget I ever said that, just think about the ability. Drawing cards until you have 5 in your hand. This is exciting. I think this is a cool ability. I think this is a cool supporting Pokemon. Now, do I think that it's really great? Do I think it's going to take over the meta? No, but I do think that Bibarel is going to see play in a lot of rogue decks, a lot of single prize decks, especially when you talk about some of the decks that, you lose a lot of things from your hand. A lot of times, being able to build up that hand again. I don't think it's going to be played in Malamar. I keep thinking about Malamar. This is the Malamar podcast where we talk about all sushi rolls and all that stuff. But I do think this is a cool card, and I do want to highlight it real quick because I know a lot of people are actually excited about this one.
I think it requires a single prize deck that doesn't need combo bench. So like Malamar, you need a bench full of combo. I think the Pachirisu is the same way. It's kind of a single prize deck, but like you need all the Honchkrows. And I think if there is a deck where you can have like 1 attacker and then 1 in reserve, and then the rest of your bench is kind of open for tech cards like Manaphies and Bibarels and all that stuff. If a deck ever like that ever were to come about, where like the attacking Pokemon does all of its stuff on itself, I think this is a great card of that, because draw until you have 5 is crazy. That we have, I can't remember any time we've ever seen a card that says draw until you have 5, especially on a single prize. Like anybody who remembers way back, they're like, there's an Orangaroo that lets you draw until you have 3.
Yeah, I think Octillery is the last one.
Yeah. So
I think the Octillery, I can't remember what the Octillery card exactly said because it's a little bit of an older card. Abysmal Hand, draw until you have 5 in your hand.
okay, yeah.
Yeah,
So,
that was back in X and Y Breakthrough.
so it's been a minute. It's been a minute.
But I mean, Abysmal Hand Octillery, a stage 1 Pokemon, right, similar to Bibaro, was really, really good.
Okay.
It's played in a lot of decks. I mean, it's very, very good. Now, I mean, the format's a little bit faster, as we mentioned, and Bibaro is not going to have that same fame, but it's a good ability that's going to be used.
Yeah. The only other card, I'll mention one more as well. I'm just also conscious of time, and I want to keep the listeners.
Yes, Sean is a very busy, popular person right now.
Is Ultra Ball. It's not on this list, but for those of you who have heard the tales of Ultra Ball but have not seen it in Standard for nigh these last 3 years, yeah, if you happen to have old copies, dust them out. You probably heard this already, but yeah, it's coming out with Brilliant Stars. Who knows how crazy it will change the format, but like, it's just a good card. If you got your old gold ones, get them out as well and sell them because now you're a millionaire. It's just, Ultra Ball, and there's a new gold Ultra Ball that's coming out as well. So you'll have 3 different gold Ultra Ball choices. So that's very exciting.
Before we end off the day, we're going to do like a Future Sight mini. It's been a while since we've done a Future Sight. Things have been hectic, but if you did not see, PTCGO went under maintenance over on January 11th. And it was interesting because the description of the update, kind of the patch notes, so that infrastructure upgrades could be applied to support account migration for the upcoming Pokemon TCG Live app. Those were the details of the update. So, Sean, we're going to do a Future Sight mini. Do you think PTCG Live is going to launch alongside Brilliant Star?
No.
You don't?
I don't. And part of it is I have not heard any news about how they will manage PTCGO versus Live coexisting. Like, if you scan something into one, does it automatically show up in the other? Like, after the account migration is done, right? Is it synced? But the reason I say that is the team challenge has been confirmed. The qualifiers go till May, and then after that, you can't expect people to like buy a bunch of new cards on PTCG Live to play in the, all the qualifier, all the like rounds after that. So I don't know. I worry that because they've chosen to do the team challenge on PTCGO, that we at least until May may be living in a PTCGO world. Now, it may be that there's just synchronicity between the two. Anything you own on one gets owned on the other, and if you add new things to the collection, it just automatically syncs. Fine. I, however, doubt that is how their backends work between the two systems. So that's why I think it would be a lot to ask of the community to maintain a PTCGO account post-migration and a PTCG Live account.
I will agree. I was going to say no as well. I think that's kind of like the not popular answer. But I think especially with what my justification was going to be the team challenge as well. With that going on, it seems really weird it seems even in my opinion, really weird to have the qualifiers on PTCGO and then the next rounds on PTCG Live.
Yeah.
Like, I know it's like a little bit of distance in time between the two, but I mean, I still think having the one tournament on 2 different platforms is like weird and not very good organizationally in terms of, I've done event management. Like, I basically majored in event management, and it just seems like a really weird choice, in my opinion. I've never organized a Pokemon tournament, but I just don't like that. So I don't think Pokemon will do that. So I don't know when it'll come, though. I mean, I would like for it to come sooner rather than later, as most people would. I know a lot of people, even in my Discord server, have been talking about, I'm just waiting for PTCG Live, and you know what, me too.
We'll see. We'll see with the account syncing. It may be that when it launches, maybe they'll launch it prior to that, and it'll just be like, hey, we're opening up the beta testing to all the people if you want to hop in. And then that might be how they do it, and they just won't host any official like team challenge stuff. And maybe there'll be a button on PTCG Live. Maybe part of it is when you log into Live the first time, it transfers, and then later on you can have like a manual transfer button when they choose to migrate everybody. Like, who knows what they're planning on the back end? You know, there are very valid reasons why we both might be wrong, but lowest common denominator, if we take all of that, like the fewest assumptions I can make, leads me to a conclusion that no, it will not be launching.
It'll be interesting. We'll see how it goes. And you know what, Sean, when all of that comes up, we on the Metapod podcast will give you the update on it. We'll tell you everything that you need to know. So that is it for this week of the Metapod podcast. Make sure you tune in next week. We've got an exclusive special interview lined up. It's going to be really, really good. I won't be there because, well, I'm moving, and the place that I'm moving to doesn't have internet. So I got to install my own internet, so which is fine. I don't mind doing that, but you know, we have lined it up so you're going to get an incredible Metapod podcast episode next week, especially if you want to build decks once Brilliant Star comes out and you want to see what cards you need to get by Brilliant Star. Make sure you come back. Sean, have a great rest of the day. I will see you soon. Not next week, but soon.